Welcome everyone on today's webinar on Indian languages and root etymology on Medh Academy. This is Atharva Lakhane, starting with the webinar. Let's get started. I hope the screen is visible. Yeah. So today the flow of this webinar would be language, both in its spoken and written format. We'll be discussing about how a slang or a dialect is different from a language, how it has irregular sentences, how a written language can differ from the spoken version, how what all features it would be having. We all be discussing this on the language learning front. Again, we'll be having two major parts of this webinar. The first part would be concerning with the language and language learning basics. So as I said, language I covered in the last slide, and the language learning basics, that is developing the inquisitiveness, people, culture and space. All this will be discussing the first part of the webinar, while the second part would be evolution of Indian languages and root etymology. Okay, yeah. So moving to the next slide, language learning. This might be the most attractive or the most interesting part of this webinar, because many people have this passion in themselves for learning a different language other than their mother tongue, or the language which is spoken in their local area. There are many people who have passion for this. Yeah. So as to how to start with the learning of a language is can get a bit confusing at some times. So there are three basic formulas for it, for you all to go, and I'll be showing you those formulas. Okay, yeah. So first and foremost, you need to have that sense of inquisitiveness in you to get it quite familiar with that language. Once you are familiar with the language, its nature, every language has its own nature, so we need to get familiar with that nature of the language. Again, how to get familiar with it is totally depending on how you are developing interest in it, and that defines the level of your grasping power of it. Okay. Secondly, you should show curiosity in knowing words. For example, if someone is speaking in some other language in front of me, the language which I want to learn, okay, I, as an inquisitive person or as a curious person, I'll obviously ask them. I won't interrupt them, but then at the end I may ask them ki, what was the meaning of that word, or how do I use it, how do I pronounce it. All these things I would ask if at all I want to learn the language, and this would only happen when I am curious. And this is the first step of learning any language. When you ask, you get answers, and when you get answers, you just register them in your mind, and you, from then onwards, you start using those words. Once I come to know about the word, I start using it in my own language. So this is how it starts. You collect words penny by penny, and it counts in to your treasure of vocabulary, the one which you have with you. Okay. So I would tell you three basic tips for learning any language. First and foremost, you need to understand that these tips, mere following of these tips won't be enough. You need to put your own efforts as well. You need to have that passion, that fire of knowing anything, learning anything to be ignited in you. Only then you can learn any language very quickly. Okay. This is gonna be easy. So let's head on to the first tip. Find a native person, the one who knows that particular language which you want to learn. Okay. Now how this person would help? This person should be very fluent in speaking that particular language. If at all he's fluent in reading and writing, then it's a brownie point for you. But that person should be able to speak a very proper and pure version of that language, because then a language may have several dialects, the rural one, the urban one, or community wise there are different dialects. So you may not want to learn a particular dialect. As a normal person, we just first aim to learn that particular language in a general sense. Okay. So if I want to learn Marathi, and I befriend a person or a local native who is from the urban side of Maharashtra, or say from Mumbai or from Nagpur, anywhere. So that urban accent may make some changes in that particular dialect, and it may result in some different form of Marathi which is not pure in its pure form. If at all I want to learn pure Marathi, I may seek someone who is from Pune, or who is someone from, a good interior district in Maharashtra, without any adulterated accent or community wise different accents. So this is how you choose someone. Okay, a wise selection should be must in this. And then once you befriend that speaker, that person, you just ask him all your doubts, all your questions, whatever you have regarding that language, how it is to be spoken. Okay, coming to the next point, that is, try to focus on speaking first. Okay, people come to me and they say that they want to learn so languages, or they want to learn this particular language, and what the first question they ask is that, how do I write my name in this, or how is this thing written, or try and show to, like, how to read this a e u. So this is not going to help you in basic terms. Landing on practical terms, if we see, learning a language is a necessity of some people. For the other, it is like a skill. In both these things, one thing is necessary. Even if you are learning for a necessity, or even if you are learning for your own hobbies, or leisure time or anything, if you like that particular language, both these cases, we make sure that we understand what the person in front of us is speaking. Only then we can say that yes, I can understand that language. But when you land on first like in the very first step, when you focus on writing and reading, your attention may get diverted, and your efforts may not be flowed in a particular direction which is needed. So what I suggest is, try to focus on speaking first. Try to understand that what the person in front of you is speaking. How you will get this is by practicing and practicing and practicing. You just need to practice those words, make sentences on your own. Once you get to know 2 or 3 words, you can combine them. You can try to make a meaningful sentence out of it. Even if it is not meaningful, it's okay, but you're trying to make a sentence out of it. You can ask your friends, the person whom you have befriended, whether it is correct or not. He would correct it, he or she would correct it, and then he would tell you whether this has anything to be corrected in it or not. From then you will understand, okay, this is what I have to speak, this is how I should form sentences, this is where the subject falls, this is where the predicate should fall, this is where the verb plus the ing thing, whatever would fall. This is how you try to put efforts from your own side. Okay, this thing would be a second tip. The third one is helping aids. Now, who are these helping aids? Helping aids are things which would help you learning a language if at all you have not found a person who is of that particular language. Okay, if I have no friend who is speaking that particular language, what I would do, that I would straightly go to some classes or some coaching center where they teach that language. If that is also not possible, then what I would select is, I would switch on to internet, and then I will learn that particular language. I would download many PDFs, I would listen to movies, I would listen to podcasts along with the subtitles over there, and with doing all these things, I would learn that particular language. So this is how it affects you. You come to know that how people speak in the daily manner when we see movies and all. Okay, so this is how things get easy for you when you learn from movies, podcasts, or every language has its own different type of helping aids. Somewhere you may find podcasts in that particular language, somewhere you may find dramas or anime in case of Japanese and all, or in case of other Indian languages, or old Indian languages, you may find classical art, or paintings, dance, music, everywhere. Like, you can use everything and anything for your own purpose of learning this language. Okay, moving on to the next slide, we'll be learning how to keep the spirit of learning intact or keep it alive. Okay, to the next slide. Keeping the flow. Okay. Practice makes the man perfect is what you all should remember in this journey of yours of language learning. Okay, it will take some time, maybe few months, few years, depending on how much you know the language already. If at all you're starting from scratch, uh, make sure that you are sticking to it every day. You are practicing it regularly. Only then you can learn that particular language by the end of some 2.5 years or something completely, maybe. Okay, but it works. Okay, see, myself, I tried learning 3 languages all from scratch, 4 languages all from scratch, and the fifth one I am learning right now. 3 languages I knew, from like, one was my mother tongue, one is English, and second is Hindi. These 3 languages, like, every person in India, or general every general person knows these 3 basic languages: national language, English, and the mother tongue, whatever we are speaking. So these 3 languages are these languages which we are conditioned to learn since like our childhood, and they are surrounded, the people of that language are surrounded around us. Okay, so learning those languages might not be very difficult. It would be easy. But learning languages which you want to learn, and there are no people around you of that particular language, might get difficult at times. So the languages which I learned, 4 languages, uh, I did have few people around me of those particular languages. That is, like, I started learning Telugu. I had few Telugu people with me. Only then I made the decision to learn it. Rest of the thing was taken care by movies, podcasts, and everything. I read books. I read poems. I even saw many serials. Everything I did, just to learn that particular language. Once I was done with Telugu, I gained few, like, a bit of confidence about learning Tamil. So I went on to learn Tamil. It was again from scratch. I didn't know much about Tamil. So I learned Tamil. I had many Tamil friends. Even places where I visited, there it was like having Tamilian culture, like temples, and many um, societal halls, and every over there. So all those places were having that particular culture. I followed that culture, and through that way I learned that language. So I had people, culture, all with me to learn those that language. Coming to Malayalam and Japanese, these languages also I'm learning, you know right from scratch. And these languages also, I didn't have people of that particular language around me to help me, so I learned somehow. Yeah, so this is how I managed. And all these while I was staying in Mumbai, a place where all sorts of people, all linguistic communities live together. So it was possible for me to learn these languages only because of the geographical location where I am. I didn't go to Tamil Nadu to speak, learn Tamil, or I didn't go to Andhra or Kerala or Japan, anywhere, for the languages which I want to learn. I just sat here and I was with the people, and then and there itself I created that atmosphere for me to learn language. It was more than enough for me. So it's not necessary that you want to be in that particular state or that particular country of the language which you want to know, unless and until it gets very compulsory for you. Okay, so it works. uh, Now, keeping the flow, how you keep the flow is, you have got 3 tips for it. The first one is exercising daily. Once you exercise daily, your tongue gets habituated to speak that particular language. um, the tongue, or our mind, or our brain, it is habituated or accustomed to a particular language since these many years, and then quickly changing or switching to another language gets bit confusing for our brain as well. But once you give it enough exercise now, it gets very easy to switch between 2 or 3 languages at a second, or at once. So you need to give your brain that much of exercise for it to work in these many things or conditions. Even if you want to learn one particular language or many languages, this one thing is very compulsory for you to practice daily. Okay, daily. There is no particular time slot for you to practice. So I'll practice from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, or 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, like no, it's not like this. A day means a full day. You utilize that day as much as you can. There is no particular time slot for learning a language. You live each and every moment with the particular language, with those people. Everything counts in. So this is how you do the practice of learning a particular language. Okay. Second thing, you should not compare two languages. You should treat every language as it is. Every language has its own beauty, its own grammatical pattern, its own syntax, or the way it is being spoken. Everything is different. Even if you see about Indian languages, the only thing they share in common is the sentence formation pattern. Else, if you see the addresses, the vocabulary, the way one should speak, etiquettes and all, everything, it counts in. So it's not much similar to each other. So you should not compare any language. If you start comparing, it might get difficult for you. You might commit many blunders in your journey of language learning. Committing blunders is okay, but comparing and committing blunders is not okay, because it gets silly when you start comparing languages. I know it's a bit difficult for us, because as a human tendency, we might think, okay, in my mother tongue we say like this, so here it might be like this. It is normal of humans to understand this, like to think like this. But then at this in this situation, don't think like this. Don't compare other languages. Just ask the person in front of you that, okay, I want to say like this, I mean uh, this things, and how should I convey it in your language? So how do I say it? Just ask it then and there itself, and you get it cleared, like what word means what, which word you want to place before the subject or anything. So get those all doubts cleared, and stop comparing languages. Okay, so it helps a lot. Okay, the third one is joining classes or seeking a mentor, but that's completely optional. If at all you're really obliged to learn a language, or it gets really compulsory for you, because you're staying in some state and you just want to know that particular language, or it's really getting difficult for you to converse over there, at that particular time you might want to join classes, because then classes, they have one um, uh, you know pro point, that is, you get to learn from trained professionalists. They train you in the best way they can, and you have a person whom you can ask your doubts all the time, even if you have not got the other person who is a local native. Okay, so you have someone to ask your doubts, and you get daily assignments. By that excuse, you at least do the exercise of your daily language practice, whatever it is. Again, there is a framed syllabus or a curriculum which though they decide. So with that curriculum, when you go in that flow, it gets really quicker for you to learn a particular language than by yourself. Okay, so it's completely optional, but I won't say it's not needed. It is good, but then you can learn any language by your own. Okay, with that note, I am coming to an end about language learning, and I hope you get it cleared, all your doubts, whichever you have about language learning. If at all you have any doubts, or you have anything to share with me, anything to ask for, just put your doubts in the chat box, and I'll address them right now. Okay, thank you. We'll be moving towards script and etymology, that is birth of language in India. I would just ask you all to concentrate on this part more, because then it is a bit complex for you all to understand. Uh, Two topics which I discussed before, which were a bit casual and they were a bit easy to understand as well. This one is not like the rest of those topics. It is a bit history related one, and I'll just ask you all a single question, that why do you feel that there is a need to learn or trace the history of the language that we are speaking today? What is the need to learn the history of a language? You might feel that it is boring, but no. The history of a language speaks about the character of that language, about the linguistic community, about the entire nation, or the geographical area where the language has been traveled. We don't even know that the language which we speak belongs to some other state or some other geographical area or not, but then it has faced a lot of ravages of time, and some languages are still obsolete, that they don't even exist. uh, you see, there are some parts in India that their Sanskrit is still spoken in conversational manner. It's not just read in form of shlokas or granthams or vedams. It's just spoken as the way we speak daily to like person to person. There are many villages in India, in Karnataka, in Varanasi. Many villages are there. So there they have kept intact the legacy of that language. Every language has its own heritage, its legacy. If people speak it, only then it is alive. If not, then it gets obsolete. People should understand that a language should be treated as the way it is. It should be given importance. We should feel proud about our mother tongue or any language, any Indian language, because Indian languages are so vast and they are so complex and yet so beautiful in nature that we can't afford to lose such a beautiful heritage that we have. Okay, without further delay, I'll just move to the next slide. Okay, Brahmi. What is Brahmi? Brahmi is the single or the only language or the script, sorry, the script which can be credited towards the creation of the entire Indian languages that we have right now. Okay, so I'll just give you a simple example of Big Bang Theory. Okay, so in Big Bang Theory, people say that there was this single atom which exploded, and the explosion caused the creation of this universe. That atom had everything in it, infinite energy, space, and temperature, everything it had. It exploded, and the explosion, the expansion, what it caused has the results of the universe in which we are living now. Similarly, Brahmi was that single atom which existed, and it exploded all over India. And rather than saying explosion, it was, spread it deep into the intricacies of our nation. Okay, it traveled all over our nation, and that is how different languages were created. Okay, so Brahmi is responsible for the birth of all Indian languages. Brahmi is authentic to India. It is not Indo-Aryan or anything external. Brahmi is not the something what we have got from the invasions or the invaders from other countries. Brahmi belongs to India. It is the creation of Indians, and as of how it is there, we'll study in the next slide. Brahmi is responsible for the birth of other Southeast Asian languages as well. How, we'll have a look at the next slide. Okay, it's very interesting. Over the left side of your slide, there is a yellow chart, and here it speaks about the Brahmi character of Ka, and how Ka as a character, it got occupied into the language streams of Southeast Asian languages is given in this yellow one. See, it might not be clearly visible, but here they have written Sinhalese, Myanmar, Thai, Tao, Khmer, Cambodian, Vietnam, and all Vietnamese. So all these languages here which they have given, these are the languages which have incorporated Indian scriptures. So India is the one, or the country, or Indian scripture is the scripture which is the origin of other Southeast Asian countries as well. We should feel proud about it rather. Okay, so this is how it evoluted all the way. Okay, coming to the Indian context, I have taken an example of letter Rna. Okay, Rna letter looked like this, capital letter of I in English in the 3rd century BCE. Afterwards, it started looking like the capital letter X, and then it further got split into two, and then today we are learning the modern scripts, that is Punjabi, Devanagari, Gujarati, Bengali, Oriya, Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, and Sinhalese. Okay, this is how these languages are. Okay, so all these languages have their single root to stick to Brahmi. Okay, over these years, like since 3rd century BCE to 1st, 3rd, 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th centuries, the languages have been evolving. Okay, evolving around time. Okay, coming to the next slide, understanding the basic flow of how Brahmi of how Brahmi traveled into the country, of how Brahmi traveled into the intricate geographical terrains of our country, and how it reached till the extreme northern point of India. Okay, Brahmi had two offsprings, Devanagari and Grantha. Okay, uh, and it was the only existential script. Okay, it was originated from cave paintings and symbolism ethnic to Indian subcontinent. Okay, if you ask how Brahmi was born, then at that particular time there were so many civilizations in Harappa, in Lothal, in Mahabalipuram, in Madhya Pradesh. All over these states there were many civilizations also. So in these civilizations, people made cave paintings. Okay, so these cave paintings gave birth to Brahmi. Okay, so moving to the second point, that is these two languages are the mother and father of all the Indian languages. Which two languages? Brahmi, sorry, Devanagari and Grantha. These two languages are the mother and father of all the Indian languages. We give credits to a single language, maybe it would be Tamil or it would be Sanskrit, but no, none of these languages are responsible for the development of all these Indian languages. Like some say, Sanskrit is the mother of all Indian languages. No, it's not the fact. It's like uh, partially okay. But Tamil is also not the mother of all Indian languages. It's also partially okay. The reason is the merging of all these things made, uh, you know, Indian languages. For now, just understand that Devanagari is Sanskrit and Grantha is Tamil. Okay, the Grantha when written, when we speak Grantha, it is Tamil. When we speak Devanagari, it is Sanskrit. Okay, at that time, because at that time no other language was prevalent. Okay, Proto Sanskrit or Proto Devanagari and Proto Grantha. Tamil is the word which we are using now. Sanskrit is the word which we are using now. But at that time, those languages didn't have that name. It was known by the name Proto. Now, what is Proto? Proto is a draft version or a rough version. If I'm making a PPT or a Word document, or if I'm making any painting for an example, I'll just draw some sketch, or I'll just draw a few lines, then I'll correct it bit, I'll erase it little bit, I'll make several few copies, and then finally I'll make entire portrait or an entire painting, and it would be colored, or it would be made in the perfect way it has to be. So that is the final document, and the documents which followed before it were the drafts or the proto versions in case of languages. Okay, so languages in their proto versions are not stable. They're like beta version apps. Okay, they're just helping it to get developed. Okay, that's how it is. Let's see how. So on the left side of your screen, you will be having a edict of Ashoka, a pillar over which Grantha script is being seen. Okay, this is the Grantha script. First came Grantha, then came Devanagari. Okay, both were not parallel. There was a delay of 3 to 4 centuries between these scripts. Okay, we must understand this. Okay, so this is how these scripts were, evolved. Now, edicts of Ashoka on this pillar, this is written in Grantha script, that is that time Proto Tamil. Okay, and over here on the right hand side, you will have modern day Tamil and that time ka Grantha script. Okay, so how these languages have helped in contribution of all the Indian languages, I'll be showing you right now. The next slide, loan and merging. Okay, loan and merging, when I say, it's the travel route of languages. It was vertical. Okay, nothing was horizontal in India. The travel route of languages, how languages traveled inside the country, it was vertical, from south to north and from north to south. This is how languages moved in the intricacies of our country. Okay, there was no horizontal movement as such. If at all it was, then it was very negligible, because at both these sides we had neighboring nations, but on the both vertical fronts we were just having two main schools of languages. On the southern hand, we had the great Grantha script. On the northern hand, we had the Devanagari one. For now, we'll call this one as Proto-Tamil and that one as Proto-Sanskrit, because Sanskrit was not yet ready and Tamil was not yet ready. But these both languages, when they merged, they created all these other Indian languages. It is like a chemical reaction, you might say. They created all the other languages, they developed themselves also. Proto-Tamil made its own Tamil, final format, Proto Sanskrit, made other languages, and its final format, final Sanskrit as well. So it's a very interesting journey that it was being followed. Okay, so this is loan and merging. The way Brahmi was converted into present day Devanagari was like this: Brahmi, then came Proto Grantha, then came Proto Devanagari, and then Devanagari. Brahmi, after it was followed by Proto Tamil, after it born Proto Sanskrit, and after that it was born Devanagari. Okay. So Brahmi to Devanagari, I have explained you the route, how it was. Brahmi in its proto versions is known as Kushala and Gupta Kala Bhasha. During the reign of Guptas and older kings, this version of language was being spoken. That is why Ashoka ke time pe also this was used. Okay. Devanagari in its proto versions is known as Nagari. Okay. When it was merged with Sanskrit, it became Devanagari. Okay. Nagari was mixed with its own words and Tamil words as well. And when it was merged with Sanskrit, it became Devanagari. And when it was started being used in Vedas, in Upanishads, in Smritis, in certain scriptures, in Ramayana, Mahabharatam, all these scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishnu Puranam, all these things, wherever it was being written, it was written in these olden scriptures. But when new scriptures were started coming, they started adopting the newer language. Okay. Then and after it, like when it was included in the mythological scriptures of India, at that time it was started known as Devanagari, because whenever it was written for God or Almighty, it was known as Deva, because Almighty is known as Deva, so Devanagari. Okay, so this is how it was there. Okay, moving to the next slide. Nature of Brahmi, how it was, and how Devanagari was born from Grantha. Okay, as I said, Grantha is Proto-Tamil, Devanagari is Proto-Sanskrit. So how Proto-Tamil gave birth to Proto-Sanskrit? We'll learn this. Okay. Nature of Brahmi was very complex in southern India. When Brahmi was as the only language, it was not Grantha, it was very complex in southern India. Okay, Grantha, when it was born, it inherited the complex pronunciations of that complex nature of Brahmi. Okay, Brahmi was the mother of Grantha. When Brahmi gave birth to Grantha, it inherited the properties of her mother. Okay, so Grantha is Proto-Tamil. So Brahmi gave birth to Proto-Tamil. So it gave birth to Proto-Tamil, and then it said, okay, this were the complex pronunciations. Many complex words, many complex alphabets were taken into the focus of this language. Okay, and words were more long than other parts. Okay, alphabets were fully used in Grantha script, unlike the other scriptures. Other scriptures slowly, what they did was they took loan from this language, Proto-Tamil. They cut short the words, and they again passed it other, they cut short the words, and this is how language traveled from southern part to northern part, and it was made easier, and the way, the more we move towards northern parts of India, the language is more easy to speak. The more we move down towards south, the language gets bit difficult to speak. It is because of the nature of that language, the characteristics of those language. Okay, one should understand at this point that Ramayanam, Mahabharatam, and other Upanishads and Vedas were written in Proto-Grantha script. Okay, hence giving its name, Grantha. Grantha means holy scriptures or scriptures. That is why Grantha had its name. Okay, rest I'll explain you on the whiteboard. Just give me some seconds to switch to the whiteboard. Okay, so here is how first I said at the first step we had Grantha. Okay, and before that on the zero we had Brahmi. So Brahmi had this thing as Ka. Okay, on the second front it became this in Grantha. Okay, as I said, Grantha had its own process of making everything complex, and it had so many curves and complexions in it, complexities in it, so it became more complex. Okay, The second stage, it became like this. See, okay, this curve was attached. I'll show you how. This curve and this curve got attached. Okay, here, this is how it was. After this, when this was attached, this became curved. After this, this became curved, and slowly after this, this entire thing became curved. After this, it became like this. You understand how things became curved and curved and curved, and this gave birth to Tamil. Until this, I'll highlight all this in green, the final one. Until this, all these things which you are being seeing, it is the proto form, the rough form. Okay, you get what I'm telling you as proto. The same way, how proto Tamil gave birth to Devanagari. We'll show you. I said proto Tamil. Okay, so proto Tamil will be taking this one, the fourth one. Okay, so the fourth one here, as it goes, this became like this, this became like this. Slowly this became like this, and I hope there is no space over here, sorry. This became like this. So you see how proto Tamil gave birth to proto Devanagari. This one is proto Tamil. This one is proto Devanagari. This one is Devanagari. This one is Tamil. Okay, final one. This is the final one. This is the final one. This is the proto one. This is the proto one. Okay, this entire thing is the proto one. This entire thing is the proto one. Okay, so I hope it gets cleared how this particular alphabet, see, this particular alphabet was made into this and this. Okay, moving on to the next slide, we have here in front of us the entire chart of consonants as well as the vowel markings. Okay, in India, what we do is the basic nature of Brahmi was it incorporated the vowel sounds inside the characters as well. When I say a character, it is a written scripture or an icon. Unlike in the Greek or the European languages, what they do is they insert the vowel sound as an independent character. If I want to write Kapi, Kapi has two alphabets, two consonants and two vowels. K is consonant, P is consonant, A is vowel and E is vowel. Okay, vowel sound. So here I take, in case of Indian languages, I'll take Ka and I'll add the A matra to it. In case of Devanagari, I'll add the A matra to it and it becomes a single character. Then I add Pa and I put E matra to it. It becomes a single character. Unlike in the European languages, it is very different. Like if I want to write Kapi, I will have to write K, the consonant, A, the vowel sound, P, the consonant again, I, the vowel sound. So here it becomes bit enlarged. The word becomes bit enlarged and elongated. But in Indian languages, it is not like this. We incorporate the vowel sounds inside the characters. Okay. So how it started, I'll explain you the same thing. Moving again to whiteboard. So I hope the screen is visible. I'll just make two columns over here. Sorry. Just make two columns. The first one and the second one. Okay. Here I'll write few proto Tamil alphabets. Okay, this is Ka, this is Ki, this is ki, this is ku, okay, and this is ku. On this part we'll be having k, k. There are two a in Tamil. I'll explain you in the next part. Ko and ko. Okay. So we'll understand how these alphabets gave birth to the Devanagari alphabets. Okay. This one, I already explained you how this ka evolved as this ka. So I won't repeat it now. Here what they did is they just cut off this portion and this single line was added over here. So this is how the Ka of Devanagari was created. As I said, languages had they moved from south to north. They became more easy. So for making it easy, they cut short or trimmed some parts. So here this line was cut short, and this line, only one line was taken. Again, I won't explain how this key Ka came in. Simply they took this key. Nothing changed. Okay. In this part over here, what they did is mirror imaged it and it was made like this. Okay. The ku over here, there is a curve. Okay. This curve, then slowly it attached itself to this, and then a curve was added and the final ku was made ready. Similarly, the Dirgha ku. The Dirgha ku has this. Okay, I am taking this part. Okay, if you understand. Again, over here. The straight line got disappeared, and finally there was this ku. You see how everywhere the straight line got disappeared. So finally this ku was made. Okay, this is how it was done. Okay, coming to the next part, that is K. How K was made, and it was made into Kai. Okay, this is K. Okay, and K was made into Kai. This was bifurcated. Okay, like this. There were two different parts. These two different parts were attached on the above line. So it one became, the other one came over here. This became Kai. How this one is K, small k, and the one upper one is K. Okay, this one was like this. Again, a single part was taken and it was placed above the head, and this is how we got our K and Kai. Explaining about Ko. Ko made cow. Ko. This one is ko and this one is ko. 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 Okay. As I said, two lines were omitted and a single line was taken. A single line was taken and this was bifurcated and this was made like this, and those two bifurcated curved lines were placed on above this one straight single line, and this is how we got cow. Okay, Ko made cow of Devanagari. Now coming to Ko. This is, sorry, Ko. Okay. Coming to the next part. This part remains and the double straight line was removed. Single straight line was kept as it is. sorry, yeah, single straight line was kept as it is, and the curved part was moved over here, and this is how we got ko. Okay, I hope it became very clear how proto Tamil gave birth to proto Devanagari. This is how the evolution happened. Okay, back to our presentation. I'll now just explain you how these vowels they converted into proto Devanagari. Now I'll explain you about the consonants. You might be seeing the screen. Here come to the last word, that is va. This is the proto Tamil va. This is proto Malayalam va. You see how one language is giving birth to many other languages. Tamil gave birth to Malayalam. This one, this circle and this straight line is the va of Pali or Braj Bhasha. Okay, the next one gave birth to Awadhi, and finally it gave birth to Devanagari. So you see how Proto Tamil gave birth to Proto Devanagari. Okay, or Sanskrit for the matter of fact. And this follows in all these examples as well. See, this is La, La, and La became La. La was the complex pronunciation and it became La. So as I said, as languages moved from south to north, they became more easy to speak. Ra became Ra, Ya, Na, Pa, Ta, Ka, E, U, all these things. Okay, moving to the next slide. Okay, loan words and script inheritance. Now what is loan words and script inheritance? Grantha script existed near what is now known as the southern state of Tamil Nadu. Remember, I said southern state of Tamil Nadu. When I say southern state, I mean this one. Just a minute. Yeah, it's fine now. So when I say the southern state, I mean by this part, not the entire Tamil Nadu. Okay. So here it existed what the Proto Tamil script or the Grantha script. Okay, I have written here in the bracket Proto Tamil and Grantha as well. Okay, yeah, so from there it traveled to present day Kerala, here to Kerala, and it was made into Proto Malayalam. Then Proto Malayalam traveled to Karnataka. Okay, it traveled in two ways. One way it traveled to Karnataka, and in other way it went to Andhra Pradesh. So it made Proto Telugu. Since Kerala and Andhra Pradesh don't share the same border, but there are few words which which are being shared by these two languages. For example, the word Alojistunnanu. Alojistunnanu, that means I am thinking or I'll think. The same way in Malayalam it is Alojikkam or Alojikkunnundu or Alojikkunnu, this way. So Alojana or Aloji, the word or the root word or the etymological word remains the same, even though these states are not sharing their own borders. As I said, the previous example about Agraha and Agraham, because the same language is giving birth to next coming languages. Okay, so from here Proto Telugu was created, and then Grantha script further expanded till northern Karnataka and southern Maharashtra including Goa. So Kannada gave birth to Marathi and Konkani. If you want to trace the languages today, how they are, Malayalam is half Sanskrit, half Tamil. Kannada is half Malayalam and half Telugu and half Tulu. Telugu is half Tamil and half Kannada. Okay. Similarly, Marathi is half Sanskrit and half Kannada. So this way it became, the mixture of these languages. Marathi as a language is a mixture of Kannada as well as Sanskrit. Okay, so both these languages are the mother of Marathi. Konkani. Coming to Konkani, Konkani has its own, Portuguese invasions and their own, what we can say, words, loan words, which are being taken from Portuguese. But before those invasions, Konkani and Kannada were having a thin line of difference between them. Marathi and Kannada, when we mix it, it becomes Konkani. Okay. Moving to the next part, the names of the states that I have been mentioning over here, that Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, at that times those states were not existing, because it's now like before independence and all these states have been formed. But this, what I am explaining you, is a matter of thousands of years ago. So understand that language didn't have any borders of state to travel. It just had infinite space of land to travel, and it traveled as much as it can, and there it stopped. And this is how today we have been linguistically dividing those states. Okay, moving to the next part. Okay, so here Grantha script stopped traveling further until it reached Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. Now, as I said, Proto Telugu gave birth to Odia. Odia is nothing but Bengali and Telugu combined. Okay, so it gave birth to, even in Madhya Pradesh, certain words which are used are belonging to Proto Tamil. Okay, or Grantha script. Until then, languages in southern India had started developing already. Like I said, na ki from Tamil Nadu it began to traveling all over till Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. Until it got traveled, all these languages down south here were started already. They had started developing. Okay. By that time, Grantha was traveling north. Devanagari was just in its proto stage. Like here, Grantha is being traveling in north, and the existing language here in northern India, that is Devanagari, proto Devanagari, it was in its infancy stage. Okay, it was just developing. So what happened is Grantha script further expanded till northern Karnataka and southern Maharashtra, including Goa. Okay. So this happened. Okay. Next slide, I'll tell you how these both languages merged. Like Proto Devanagari existing in the north, and the Grantha which almost covered up to Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. Okay. History of Tamil script, or the Proto Grantha script. Here they have written Tamil, but it is actually Proto Grantha. Here A, E, U, A, I, O, like this they have written O. So as I said, there were A and O as well. But in Devanagari, they omitted A, they just kept A and O. A-I-O-O. Okay, this is that is how it was. So starting in the 3rd century BCE, till then, like you see, 3rd century BCE is the starting of Tamil language. Okay, so it was looking like this. Then it came to AD 2nd century, AD 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and subsequently till 19th century AD. Okay, and still it is not final one, which is written over here. It is not final one. Again, it saw many changes. You can see how these words have been changing. Just concentrate on a single alphabet over here. See how it is being changed. The alphabet. In this 12th century AD, here came the Devanagari A. If you can see the Devanagari A, and then it bifurcated, like it changed its node and it started developing on its own. And after that came, proper Tamil language. Okay, here on this side they have given about the consonants, how I explained about the plus sign and how it became Ka. Okay, yeah, so I hope it is clear enough. This one gives a very clear understanding of how Proto-Tamil evolved around these many years, since 3rd century BC and 19th century AD. Now Grantha and Devanagari. Grantha has a very heavy impact on the development of Devanagari as a script. Grantha reached till Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. Until then, Devanagari was, still in its developing form. So Grantha had a lot of, impact on its development also, because it was existing over there. It's like I go to meet a relative who is very small cousin sister of mine, and I stay with her for some 5 to 6 years, and she inculcates my habits as well. So it's like the same way. I as Grantha script go till Madhya Pradesh and Odisha, and there Devanagari, Proto Devanagari is in still its infancy stage, and with my influence the language gets changed. So this is how it was. As Grantha traveled northwards in India, it omitted many words. So it went on trimming and cutting many words. Okay, the written script saw many omissions. Many omissions were made, like many things were omitted. Okay, many curves and lines were cut or trimmed out, and Devanagari was born. So here I'll show you a a. This is how a became a. A become a. Okay, like this it became. Okay, I'll explain you a simple alphabet of Pa, how it evolved. Okay, I'll explain you how the alphabet Pa developed. Okay, Pa was like this in its proto Tamil state. It became like this. Subsequently, it became like this, and again it became like this. Now here, this one was inverted 180 degrees. 180 degrees inversion was being seen, and then it became like this. This one was the Pa in Malayalam. Okay, now again this Malayalam Pa, it becomes like this, becomes like this, becomes like this. Slowly and slowly it became the Pa used in Telugu. Also here the Pa used in Kannada. Okay, somewhat similar. Proto Kannada. This is Proto Kannada, and this is final version of Telugu. Okay. Now you might be looking at this in a very different manner. How this is not different. This is very different from the Devanagari Pa. This is very different from Devanagari Pa. Just have patience. Okay. Now when it became like this one, slowly this line, it got disappeared, and this came. Okay. Slowly these two were connected, and this is how the Devanagari Pa was formed. Okay, so this is how a letter, Proto Tamil letter, I'll write over here, Proto Tamil letter was converted into Devanagari, Telugu, Proto Kannada and Malayalam. Okay, so this is how it was. Thank you for your patience. By now, understanding such illustrations is a bit difficult, but yeah. Back to our PPT. Moving to the next slide. The flow of Devanagari. Devanagari started spreading with a delay of 4 to 5 years, as I said, 4 to 5 centuries, sorry. Until then, Grantha successfully flourished in North India. Like Grantha, as I said, it was, it reached, like from south, it reached from Tamil Nadu, Proto Grantha, Proto Tamil, it reached till Madhya Pradesh and Odisha. Until then, it was totally, flourished in northern India. And then it gave birth to Awadhi, Braj, Magadhi and Pali Bhasha. Awadhi, Braj, Magadhi and Pali. Okay, these were the languages which helped in the development of Hindi as a language. Okay, now you should understand how Hindi came into existence. Awadhi, Braj, Magadhi, Pali, Urdu from Indo-Eastern states, and Sanskrit as well. So, and Tamil also. So Tamil, Awadhi, Braj, Magadhi, Pali, Sanskrit, Urdu, all these languages have made Hindi as a language which we are speaking today. Okay. To the next part, the flow of Devanagari in North India, like other language. Now we saw just about Hindi, but now I'll explain you about the other languages, that is other North Indian languages. Proto languages of Devanagari eventually merged into forming modern day Hindi as its dialect. As I said, they merged into forming Hindi. Rest of the proto dialects I'm saying, okay, they merged with the already existing Grantha formed languages in North India. Like as I said, Proto Tamil made its other languages in North India. Okay, so how they got popular is Proto Odia plus Sanskrit is Bangla. Proto Telugu plus Awadhi plus Proto Devanagari, is Odia. Okay, note this down. This might get a bit confusing, but I have written it very clearly. Gujarati, Sanskrit plus Pali plus Proto-Marathi. This is how Gujarati was born. Marathi, Proto-Kannada plus Tulu plus Sanskrit. This is how Marathi was born as a language. In this way, these North Indian languages, they were formed, and slowly with the combinations of Granthas and its offsprings, as I said, these proto-languages, Devanagari derived its dialects. Okay, so by now we have completed Hindi, Bangla, Odia, Gujarati, Marathi, all these languages. Okay, coming back to south now, like what happened in south, all these where we were traveling in north, around in the north, and what happened to the languages around there. Coming back to south, what happened to the southern Indian languages? So in southern India, Malayalam, how it got? Manipravalam plus Sanskrit. Manipravalam is a language which is combined with Tamil, Proto-Tamil, and Proto-Malayalam. Okay, it is a bit complex, but that Manipravalam combined with Sanskrit became Malayalam. Malayalam is the only language in India which has a highest number of loan words from Sanskrit. Okay, Malayalam, though it is immediately neighboring to Tamil Nadu, it has the highest number of loan words from Sanskrit. Okay, so that is why maybe it is known as God's own country, and the language is also so beautiful. So this is how Malayalam is there, but it is very difficult to pronounce. The Sanskrit is not modern day Sanskrit, it's proto Sanskrit, so that is why it is very difficult. Okay, yeah, so Kannada, Proto Kodagu plus Malayalam plus Pali. Malayalam, Pali from north, Malayalam from south, Pali from north, and Kodagu. This all made Kannada. Telugu, Manipravalam from Kerala, Sanskrit from north, Proto-Tamil from Tamil Nadu, and Proto-Kodagu from Karnataka. These all languages made Telugu. That is why Telugu is also known as the Italian of East. Why Italian of East? Italian is also there in the West, but a famous, voyager, I don't remember his name. This famous voyager quoted as Telugu is known as the most sweetest language, and that language is the only language in entire world which ends, every alphabet of Telugu ends with a vowel. Okay, every alphabet ends with a vowel sound. Okay, it doesn't end with a consonant. So this is how Telugu is. Okay, coming to Tamil, how Tamil as a language developed? Proto-Tamil plus Sanskrit, but it took very long for Sanskrit to reach down in south. As I said, Proto-Tamil was traveling up in the north. Sanskrit also traveled down in the south. But we noticed by now Sanskrit had entered southern India, and it returned once again up on the north. Like Sanskrit came down in South India. All the South Indian languages borrowed few Sanskrit words from the Sanskrit language, and then they kept those words as loan words. Again, Sanskrit came back, like it went back to North India. Okay, just as the way the North Indian languages took loan words from Proto-Tamil, the same way Southern Indian languages took loan words from Proto-Sanskrit. So both these languages have taken their own loan words. They have merged as well. Okay, so during the reign of Cholas and Cheras, Sangam Tamil was flourishing like anything, and the most richest language is Sangam Tamil. Okay, so Sangam Tamil was flourishing like anything, and that point of time the rulers made sure that Grantha script remains so intact that we don't want any words or any other foreign invasions. So those kings protected their temples, huge temples which are there. We can see in southern India, no temple in southern India is being looted or being destroyed, or no temple was demolished in southern India. That is why such grand temples are there. When you visit southern Indian temples, you can find the walls of those temples being inscribed on the Grantha script. I'll tell you my personal incident. I went to Tirupati, and in Tirupati, when you go by Srivari Metlu, you can find a mandapam, and on that mandapam it is believed that Varahaswami Varlu came and he inscripted those words in Grantha script. Imagine how old it might be. Grantha script can still be seen over there on the outer walls of the Gopuram of Tirupati temple. during the Bhumi Pujan and Vastu Sthapana of that temple was being done during by Agama Shastras. Grantha script was used, Proto Grantha script, like old Tamil, very very old Tamil script was used, and we can still observe that many more places in India are there where historical examples we can see that how language traveled from north to south, and there was so many exchange of words being taking place. Okay, so it's very interesting. So with this we come to the end, as we have learned all these languages of India, that is Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil. In the previous side we saw about Bengali, Gujarati, um, Marathi, all these languages. Coming back to other languages which were developed in the very recent stage. Okay, so the languages which were developed during very recent stage were Punjabi and Assamese. So Assamese was developed with the Sanskrit, with a mixture of Sanskrit and Proto Bengali. If you see, the script of Bengali and Assamese would be almost the same, and all the northeastern languages all have also derived their main heritage or their legacy from Proto Bengali. Okay. Again, coming back to Punjabi, Punjabi as a language has its heavy loan words taken from Urdu, and that is why it is recently developed language. Gurumukhi, the script which is being used, Punjabi as a language is very recent one. It doesn't have much older history, because then until then in Punjab Proto Devanagari was being spoken as a spoken language. Proto Devanagari was being spoken. When Mughal invasions came, and before even Mughal invasions, just the travels from India, passes and all people came into India, Mughal and the Urdu language slowly started infusing into the India from the Sindh belt or the Indus River, from that side. So Punjab, as the land of five rivers, it was very lucky to welcome Urdu into India. So via Punjab, Urdu started entering into India, and slowly it traveled below south to reach Madhya Pradesh, and it stopped over there. Like beyond Madhya Pradesh, Urdu has very negligible growth. Okay, so Hindi also heavily adopted Urdu words. So how this is how Urdu also entered India and made other new languages. Okay, but with this we come to the end of this session, and I just conclude that we have learned how to learn Indian languages in the first part. Second part, how people, culture, and the space, they form the pillars of any language. The third part, we learnt about how Indian languages were born, and this is how we clear our session. If at all you have any doubts, please ask in the live session which I'll be having right now, or in the chat box, or in the YouTube live chat box. I'll get your doubts cleared. Okay, thank you so much, Medh Academy, Miss Priya Menon, and all the other staff, and my parents, almighty everyone who helped me in executing this webinar. I'm grateful for you all. Also the audience, you all stayed with a lot of patience till the very end. Thank you for registering into this webinar, and finding it very interesting to attend this webinar. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Hello. Is my voice audible? Please, someone let me know through the chat box so that I can, get to know if my voice is audible enough. Okay, okay. So thank you. So I just had this one doubt in the chat box, as far as I can find it, raised by Parth Kulkarni. So it reads as: inscriptions during Ashoka times were using Brahmi. How could Buddha use Pali when in the timeline do you see Pali and Prakrit? Okay, so see, regarding Pali, it was in its proto period during Buddha's reign, Buddha's period. Okay, he preached it. Buddha preached it, and slowly it evolved with time. Coming to Prakrit, it is quite unclear in the pages of history about its origin or tracing the path, because the language which I included in this webinar were major ones, major dialects. Nevertheless, what I know about Prakrit, is that it was known as Ardha Magadhi, and somewhere around Bihar, like at that time known as Magadha Pradesh. Over there, Ardha Magadhi was spoken, and which gave rise eventually to Prakrit, which we are speaking right now. So yeah, over here in the timeline we see Prakrit and Pali, and Buddha used Proto Pali in like during his preaching period. Yeah. So I hope I clear your doubt. If anyone has any other doubt, please do let me know. I'm here to solve all your doubts. You can still ask questions. I'm here for your guys. By the time I'll just read the comments, which you all took so many efforts and typed all those reviews. I'll just start from the very beginning, okay? Um, Ravi Menon, Godavari Nadi Sansad Nanded, Shikha Menon, Monica ma'am, Shivani, Delin, thank you so much. Even YZ Entertainment, Shantanu Bhavji, Avinash Kaka, Suman Chaudhary, thank you so much. Vaishali Salvi, Sandeep Deshpande, Gokul Nair, Geeta Menon. Thank you so much. Um, Vijay Kumar, Neelam, Ravi Menon, Divya ma'am. Thank you so much for your beautiful comments. Haridas Pillai, Pravin Sanil, Mohanan Menon, Minal Razurkar. Thank you so much. Sangeeta Chaudhary, Abhijit Chatan, Sandesh Kulkarni. Thank you so much. Mugdha Lakhne, Piyush Jha, Aditi Kriyas. Thank you so much. Um, Gayatri Nair, Ashwin P, One Man's Diary, Akhil Ravindranath, Purnima Karkada ma'am, Adira Nair, Sri Viknesh, Neil Rathod. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to receive all these comments from you all. Really, it was so beautiful to address you all. Yeah, I'm here for more 5 minutes, and I'll be waiting for any doubts. Uh, yeah, so I'll be waiting for your doubts, and I'll clear them as soon as you put it in the chat box. Okay, so I don't see any doubts as far. Okay, Vedangi Ram Gopal, thank you, uncle, for your beautiful comments. Yeah, so I don't see any doubts so as far. So I'll be ending this live session, leaving you all with a very short message. Please feel proud of your mother tongue or any Indian language, whichever you are learning. Respect the heritage, the history of Indian languages, and yeah, that's it. Thank you all. It was so beautiful having this evening with you. Signing off, yours sincerely, Atharva Lakhani. Thank you.